Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First off, thank you for coming to my channel and watching this video. It helps me a great deal if you'd hit the like button before you leave today. I'd love it if you check out a few other videos too and maybe subscribe to my channel. I'm putting out 2 to 3 videos per week, and I think it's pretty valuable content, especially if you're a beginner or you just want ideas for projects. So today I thought I would make what I'm going to call a partial frame pendant. I've been making these for a few years, and I picked out a pretty stone. I'll show you how I do these kind. So let's get started. So here's the stone I picked. I'm pretty sure I cut this one years ago based on the unfinished back, and I vaguely remember cutting it. It came from a slab of crazy lace agate that I had picked up somewhere. It wasn't one with a lot of color, but it had some cool patterns, and I think this will make for an interesting pendant. So that's the stone. For bezel, I'm going to be using 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip, which is what I use for most things. I'll need some back for the bezel, as well as a piece of this for the bail. And this is 26 gauge sterling sheet. For the frame that I'm going to be using, I'm going to use some 14 gauge square wire, and I'll be using some scrap pieces that I find laying around the table here to make some balls as well. And that should be pretty much everything. First off, we need to make a bezel, so we'll do that. This one has some sharp corners, so it's going to make for a little bit of an interesting bezel. Sometimes those are hard to get tight around the stone. That's pretty good, I think. Probably don't want to have a lot of excess loose bezel on this one, since we have those sharp corners. Put just a plain bottom on it. Let's take this right here. When you're doing an odd shaped stone like this, one of the things I've done a couple of times is, when I wasn't thinking, I accidentally soldered the bezel on like this, and then there's no way you can get it to fit. So just double check before you solder these ones down if they're abstract shaped like that, to make sure that you have the upside of the stone up. Hopefully that will prevent you from doing one of the things that I've done in the past. Looks like I have enough solder there, so. Gotta make sure I didn't leave any gaps on that solder joint. It's a little hard to tell when there's a lot of flux on here still, but that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and trim him off. Do the filing now. So I think I'm going to make a few balls now from the charcoal block. There you are. I can find a little scrap laying around here. Just a scrap piece of 14. So the reason I'm going to make some balls is I'm going to be putting a border part of the way around this, but I want it separated from the bezel with some balls. So I'm going to do it in a few spots here, but not all the way around. So I'm going to make some smallish little silver balls first. I always make a few extra balls because they roll everywhere, so they generally end up rolling one or two of them onto the floor and then I can't find them. So, somebody asked a question about making balls the other day and how they kept getting porous surfaces on them. I don't remember who it was, sorry about that. But one of the things that I found is that if initially after they cool, if I end up with getting a rough, not very symmetrical surface, like this one right here, if you reheat it, get it to melt again, and keep the heat on it longer than you need to, so it gets way above the melting temperature. And then generally, once it does cool, it has a smoother surface. I am unsure of why that is, but it does seem to work. Latecomers. Okay, so I'm thinking I'm definitely gonna go up like this. Let's see what I'm doing. Go up like this and have it angle down and go down part of the way down this side. So I'm gonna need a couple of pieces for that. That one's plenty long for that. I don't know how long I want that one to be yet. So I'm going to go ahead and I really want it to kind of match the curve of this, and that actually does already because the wire had a slight curve in it. I don't know if you can see that. So I'll just use that as is, but this one here is a little too much curved for that. So I need to take a little bit of that bend out of there. Okay, so I am going to cut this off. That's really curved in that dimension. Alright, but since these are going to come together like this, I need to cut that at an angle a little bit and then file it. So, not a big measure, but I can usually file it, lay them next to each other like this, and see how close I am on the angle. That's probably close enough because I'm going to curve them slightly. So I'm going to go ahead and solder those two together. Excuse me. I'm going to use this as a guide to get the angle right. That looks pretty good. Okay, so let's solder that. I have plenty of solder on the pad there. So I just cut that off along with the same way that was going. Smooth it out there. Smooth it out on top here. Maybe a little on the bottom too. Try and get this corner to be a relatively sharp corner by using this file here. Okay, so we got a kind of a sharp corner there. So really the balls are just going to be kind of like that, as to keep it separate from this. So it looks like I need to curve this a little bit in order for it to fit nicely. Give it a slight curve like that. To me, that's sitting too far away. Maybe I need some smaller balls. I think I need smaller balls. So I'm going to try to make some smaller balls. Kind of like that. And then I think I might do a little portion of one over here too, but it doesn't have to be super long, I don't think. Okay, now I'm gonna do a little filing on these to make them taper slightly so they don't just look like square wire. Sure, it was kind of hard to see what it was doing there, but I was going to do that. This one should be a little easier to hold on to anyway. I'm going to smooth this corner out so it's not quite so pointy. Mark where those balls go so we don't put them in the wrong spot. Okay, so the easiest way to attach all this together is to solder the balls onto the wire first. At least I have found that to be the case. So let's do that first. Keep in mind, you could do this with just about any kind of shape of stone. It doesn't have to be angular or anything like that. I've done rectangular ones, I've done circular ones, I've done a few ovals. They all end up looking pretty cool. So I think you might find that if you make a few different ones with different shaped stones and different configurations of the borders, you might come up with some really interesting pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and solder that together. Kind of see where we're going here. I'll put some kind of bail up here. I haven't quite decided what yet, but I have some thoughts. So let me see what I can do here. I think though I might getting a little bit tired, so I might call it a night and finish this in the morning. So I'll throw this in the pickle so it cleans up a little bit, and then we'll be fresh and maybe have some good ideas in the morning. Good morning. So I'll let that pickle overnight so it cleaned it up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add a bail onto this thing, and I'm going to use 14 gauge square wire. I'm going to do a little bit different bail than I do sometimes. And I'm going to cut a little straight piece. That. Hopefully those are long enough for what I'm going to do here. I'm going to solder these little ones. About like that, I think. I'm just going to snip these ends off here. So then, bend these down towards each other. going to get kind of a nice symmetrical curve like that. Then I think I'm going to solder that together on the bottom, and then I'm going to file it to match this slope so that that can stick up straight on the center point. And then I'm going to add a larger tube that circles around that thing so you can run a chain through it. So basically what I want to do is attach it kind of at that angle. So I just need to do a little filing to get it to where it sits like that. Well, that was pretty easy. I got the angle right on the first try. That never happens. There's likely enough solder there. I have some extra just to make sure we get a good solid joint there. Let's try that. So, I can always move it sideways if I'm not happy with the way it sits, but I think it needs to slide that way a little bit. See if we can do that without messing anything up. I'm going to use this as a gauge to how wide of a piece of tube I'm going to cut. I don't want it to be too wide to fit in there. Now, you can kind of get a rough estimate about how wide of a circle you want. So let's say you want a circle the size of this pencil, which should be okay. You go by pi times diameter equals circumference, and pi is pretty close to 3. So if I go about 3 of the diameters of these, puts me about right there. That should give me a decent sized tube, pretty close to the size that I'm looking for. I find making tubes, it's easier if you have one of these bail making pliers. You can actually get them relatively round then. So I got to slip it over this. Then I got to get this to be relatively round when I solder it back on here. I normally make tubes without having them round throughout the whole stage. I round them at the end, but this one I'm going to have to kind of round because I'm soldering it around this bar here. Try and get it pretty close to being round. So I think I'm going to go like that. The only thing that could really go wrong on these ones is if you got the overall piece too hot. And it solders this tube onto it. However, since this is a separate piece, we don't have to heat the entire piece. This is one of those few times where you can just heat a small piece that's separate from the other one, in order to get it up to temperature. So this other one, it's not really relevant, so we'll just heat there. And then I'll probably just pick a little bit on there. You could just place a piece of solder on there as well. I'm going to heat the whole thing just a little bit, and I'm going to let that pickle for a while, and then I will clean it up with the Dremel some, do a little pre-polishing, and we'll set the stone and do the final polish. So we're getting there. So I did a little bit of cleaning up with the Dremel tool, and now I cut some pieces of tag board here. I don't know if I have enough or not. I haven't really looked at the stone here, but I think it might just need, I'm going to put 3 in there. We'll see how it sits. Okay, so I got it in there, but that's sitting just a little too high. So if you didn't know the secret to doing that, getting a stone out of a bezel, hitting it on its side sometimes will give you an advantage to getting it to pop out. No extra charge for that tip. That's pretty good, actually. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with that. When you have a sharp corner like this, there's too much metal to compress over that sharp point, and so if you thin out the bezel just a little bit right there at the top, you don't want to go so far that you end up with a slot going through there. Just enough to make it easier to compress into that space. I'm going to go ahead and thin these ones just a skosh too. Again, I'm not doing it very much, just a little tiny bit. So I think I'm going to go ahead and polish that, and then I'll bring back the final result for you to see. Alright, so there's the finished one. I'll put it on a chain and get a better picture of it at the end here. So hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you next time. That was the partial frame pendant. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you would make sure to hit the like button before you leave today, that helps me out a good amount. And I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel. Feel free to share it with your friends. I love comments and suggestions for videos. Generally, I'd want to say thank you to all the people who've been watching them so far. I appreciate the input and the nice comments. So, thanks for watching. Happy silversmithing. Take care.